game over? Are we gonna clash into that broadcasting?
Oh,
I don't think they're playing tonight.
It was I thought I seen the middle school. That wasn't tonight.
Oh,
the
maybe.
first one is the 11.
I think we're good to go, Ms. Daniels.
Okay, thank you. You ready, Miss Bailey? Good evening and welcome to the Garfield Heights City School District February 8th work session. I would like to call tonight's meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Daniels,
Yes.
Ms. King,
Yes,
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Tonight, do we have to, we don't have to, excuse me, but we don't have to approve the agenda or anything for the work
No.
session.
No, you do not.
Okay, great. Well, tonight, the first item.
Well, actually, we will do it after the oath of office and adoption of Ms. Morrison and appointing her as the open board seat. Then we'll approve the agenda with her seated as a board member. I see that at 1.5.
Okay, gotcha. So the first order on our agenda is the approval of resolution number 2021. And I'm gonna pull this up on various items. Is that the resolution with the MOU?
No, this is the resolution appointing Ms. Morrison to the open board seat.
2021-03.
My other device is not loading up our board docs. I do apologize. So I would like to get a motion to approve resolution 2021-03, approving the appointment of Ms. Harrison Morrison to the vacant board seat, that unexpired term of December 31st, 2021. Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2021-03.
Moved by Ms. Thomas, and second,
Second,
and second by Ms. King. Roll call, please.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. King,
yes,
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Morrison, we need you to take the oath of office.
Okay.
If you would repeat after me, I state your name,
I, Heather Morrison,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties,
that I will faithfully and
impartially discharge my duties
impartially discharge my duties
as member for the Garfield Heights City School District
as member of the Garfield Heights City School District
to the best of my ability
to the best of my ability
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
and in accordance with the laws now in effect
during my continuance in said office.
during the
Right.
continuance of my
And
said office
Until my successor is chosen.
until my successor is chosen.
Congratulations and welcome to the Garfield Heights Board of Education.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Heather.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ms. Morrison. Congratulations, Ms. Morrison, and we welcome you to the Garfield Heights City School District. We thank you for your willingness to serve students in our community by sitting on the Garfield Heights City School Board. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting?
so moved.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. King, second by Ms. Thomas. Can I have roll call, please?
Ms. King,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the superintendent recommendations tonight. And do we have anything on 2.0? I have to apologize. I printed out, I think, the simple version of the agenda, which is not giving me any information.
It's a motion to approve the resignation of Mr. Kyle Seymour as a maintenance mechanic, effective 2/5/21.
I got it. Yes, can I get a motion on the floor for the recommendation of the resignation of Kyle Seymour?
Make a motion to approve the resignation of Kyle Seymour.
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Thomas, second by Ms. King. Roll call, please.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. King,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. Is there any discussion on that item? Okay, with there being no discussion, I would like to move on to item 3.1 of our agenda, which is the resolution to enter into settlement agreement regarding the merit incentive payment for attendance. Do I have a motion on the floor, please?
So moved.
In a second?
I think Ms. Thomas seconded.
That was moved by Ms. King, second by Ms. Thomas. Can I have roll call, please?
Ms. King,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. The next item on our agenda is our discussions for tonight's work session. And tonight I would like to welcome Coach Sonny Johnson to our meeting this evening. He would like to discuss a matter with the Board of Education as it relates to the facilities and the rental of the facilities and some programming that he's been doing with the district. Mr. Coach Johnson.
How y'all doing today?
Good
First of
evening.
all, Ms. Morrison, congratulations.
Thank you.
No problem. I'm just here to present, what we've been doing in this district has honestly been successful. Far as, the AAU tournaments we've been doing starting basically in March. We have those go from like March to April, May to basically May. And we're bringing a lot of notoriety, a lot of good spirit. I mean, basically to our community, with having a lot of kids and being able to do stuff in our community with kids. And I think that's been very, very successful. So I know that's coming up the end of March. And I think, from me going to tournaments and the way how they've been being managed and things like that, even now, it was one just in Euclid High School that was really, really big. That was pretty nice that they had this weekend. That was ran really nice with sanitizers and just cleaning and ball sweeping and just the right crew to make sure everything was right, make sure people had a mask on for those events, that AAU event that was this weekend. I do have something coming up before that event, the AAU tournaments do start. I have a nationwide showcase that I started. This is nothing to do with the school district. This is called NEO Youth Elite. When I started it, it was something just for, I use it as Northeast Ohio, but people start saying NEO. So I looked up the word NEO, it means something new. This event is really, really huge across the country. It brings in the top media from ESPN, from Rivals. We fly them in. We have big sponsorships, and Blaster sponsors it. Ganley Chevrolet sponsored it, Ganley sponsored it. Quick and Wireless sponsors this event as well. They also will be supplying helping supply the sanitizer and helping us check in the parents and also the students that will be in attendance for the event on February 20th and 21st. And I just want to, as far as going to the board, letting you know, we do have a cleaning crew. What our plans is to make sure everybody in attendance. First of all, I want to say this. I would not come to Garfield Heights unless I've done it before, not during this Corona time. We have had 2 events already during this time. And I think we did it in, what did we do it, Ray? In August?
August.
August, we did in August and September already. Out in Twinsburg. But they have but if they're booked and things like that, they have a big volleyball tournament going on. So we couldn't do it there this time, but it's always been home. It's always been at Garfield Heights. But we had the right equipment, everything we needed to. Everybody that walks in the building will have be checked, temperature check. Okay, you cannot come in without a mask. We were clean throughout the bleachers throughout every game. We have a cleaning crew, Johnson's cleaning crew, that will be coming through as well, making sure everything's fine. As far as if anybody need what did we use last time? Anything? Yeah, with anything, huh? What you say?
Purell.
Who?
Purell.
My wife's here. She's a little mad at me, so she won't come in the screen, but that's okay. We'll deal with that later. So y'all know what I'm talking about there. So she's off to the side. She's a little mad. I got to make up later. But Pure, whatever she said. What is it, baby? Sanitizer. Okay, she just wanted to cut it short for me. So we'll have that. Blasters is supplying the whole facility with sanitizer as well. But it is major. I've had this thing set up. People have registered since August. So, we even have Holiday Inn hotels and Independence that has a ton of people that's involved with this event as well. But it's going to be really big. I would love to do it home. Everybody that comes into the building, this is from last event right here. I showed this to Mr. Saluka before. But this is, everybody comes in, have to sign a waiver. We have a $1 million insurance policy on anything that goes on. That's for the AAU tournaments and also the event that's coming up on February 20th and 21st. But it is a national event. It is something really big, not just for Garfield Heights, but for the entire state. And I think it's something that I would love to do home. And we've always done it home. Going to other places is really, to be honest, sucked to me, because I'm just so used to being home. And that's why I'm here to hopefully be able to do a major event to bring it back to Garfield Heights, which has nothing to do with the school system or anything like that. I'm just a person trying to use the facility, rent out the facility, and do something big in the community.
Coach, I have a question. How will you go about limiting the number of individuals in the facility at one time so that we can maintain social distancing?
Well, what we have done is, we have a certain crew come in. We have, basically it's 10 kids on each team. And when those 10 kids are playing, we do have enough room. Our facility is pretty big. So, when I do an AAU tournament, I usually just use one side of the bleachers, but because of Corona, we're going to open up the other side as well. So, and that's how we want to social distance everybody, the parents and the kids as well. And then we making announcements too. Hey, after your game is over with, we ask you to leave and not come back until your next game. So we try to have a crew leaving out, a group coming in. And we don't mind having a team that's playing next waiting, because I think our facility is big enough to have a certain amount of kids in there for an event like this.
I have go ahead.
I was just going to ask, will you be limiting the number of family members? is it just mom and dad, or, you know, 2 parents or 2 adults per, so that we don't have the whole family reunion?
Yeah, we limit it. For the events like this, it's usually only a parent, maybe one parent or 2 parents that come. It's not really, you know, some kids, you know, I mean, yeah, definitely. I would say at the most it'd be 2 parents or 3 at the most that comes in with their kid for sure, and probably not even that. Probably most of them have 1. So I mean that's just how it's been going. I can just tell you how it's been, and it's been pretty successful like that. We just did one. It was just like that. We didn't have a lot of people coming in and out like that.
I do have a question for Mr. Saluka first. I know that we suspended the rentals of the facilities, and with this proposal coming before the board, is it your recommendation that we begin to allow people to begin to rent the facilities again, as long as they follow CDC guidelines, or how? I'm just trying to see where we're at as far as that and the CDC recommendations and guidelines.
The short answer, yes, I think we should open it up, our facilities for rent. We make all renters sign off on an indemnification clause, also a waiver, and they need to, and Mr. Johnson, his credit, provided me, per my request, a 4-page document of how he's going to meet the guidelines and with the cleaning and the social distancing. And I think if we put those procedures in place with other groups, if they want to rent our facilities, these are the requirements. They're going to have to clean. They're going to have to social distance depending on the facility they want to use, and go from there, and provide their own services. But they would have to meet our requirements. But yeah, I think that with everything we've put in place in our buildings, and for safety reasons, and we've got pretty much down pat with the social distancing, I think that we can limit the events to a small few, whoever wants to rent at our requirements. Yes.
And so, just for clarification, I do thank you, Coach Johnson, for sharing with us all the great things that these programs bring to the community, and the nationwide exposure that it gives our student athletes. It is to be commended for you taking the time out to create these programs for student athletes. I'm sure that it makes a great impact on them and their future and the community. But I guess my question is tonight is not really about what program is coming into the building. I guess it's just about a discussion as it relates to, are we ready to begin to rent our facilities back out into the community? And regardless of how Mr. Johnson may run his program or visitors and things of that sort, that does not have any implication on people's expectation as it relates to coming to events that's hosted by Garfield Heights City School District. So however their protocol and their safety measures that they may take, or who they allow to be visitors, I just want maybe people to be clear that this is just a rental discussion, and that maybe they can't necessarily have the same expectations for the district, and us open up programming and things of that sort up under the same manner. Would that be correct, Mr. Sluka? I mean, it's
Absolutely,
Mrs.
Mrs. Daniels. It doesn't open up rentals. We still have the right to pick and choose who and what organizations we rent to. If they can't demonstrate that they're going to follow our guidelines and the CDC social distancing and everything else, and signing off and making necessary arrangements for the cleaning and the sanitization, then we won't rent to them. They have to demonstrate to us the procedures they're putting in place. This is not an open invitation where we rent to one, we have to rent to all. No, we still pick and choose who we rent to, and and how they're going to use our facilities.
And if there's
Absolutely.
if there's a CDC violation, is that on us or will that be on the renter of the facility? And
It-
have we talked to council about that?
It would be on the renter of the facility, because we're just renting the facility. They're required to follow the guidelines. They're going to sign off on our waiver forms and our indemnification, and they're going to have to sign off that they are following the CDC guidelines. And that's our interpretation and requirement for the rental of our buildings. And Mr. Johnson knows this. We've had this discussion.
And I think, Mrs. Daniels, you mind if I piggyback off Mr. Saluka here? I think, and what Mr. Saluka had said is, you know, if, even though we have indemnification waivers and things of that nature, if we see that, you know, things are just not being followed, there's a systematic issue with a renter, then, you know, we have the ability to say, okay, you're not following our guidelines. You know, you're not following basic guidelines, especially in a pandemic, and we can't rent you anymore. So there's that piece of it.
I think one of my only issues about just beginning to open, not necessarily an issue, but a recommendation as it relates to opening up our facilities for rental, especially if there's a facility that will be utilized by our students and staff, that just to ensure that the proper cleaning and sanitation is taking place. And do we want to entrust that with a renter, or do we want to begin to charge a little extra to make sure that our staff and that the cleaning and sanitation is to the standard in which we, you know, provide safety for the district? And that's just one of my only concerns about that piece.
Well, one of the things that we do is as part of the rental fee is that we have to have a custodian on duty. So they will be ensuring that whoever the renter hires to clean, and a lot of times Mr. Johnson has his own crew, but a lot of times other renters, let's just say for the Center for Performing Arts, they will pay extra for us to clean the facility because they don't have the wherewithal. Mr. Johnson does. He's been through this before. But if our custodian comes down and all of a sudden in a day and he says, hey, he'll give us a call and say it's just not getting done the way we need to, then we need to take the necessary steps to make sure that it is clean, and we will charge back to the renter for that extra cleaning.
Thank you, Mr. Sluka. Ms. Thomas, Ms. King, Ms. Morris, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Just for clarification, so at any given time in the gym, we're speaking of 10 kids per team, possibly 2 parents per team. 2 parents per kid and coaches.
Yeah, it's you know, 10 parents per kid. We probably have 4 courts going on. So that's like 20 kids on a court, basically. You got a couple of kids waiting on the sideline. Then you got parents, but they're coming in and out when teams are playing. You know, you might have the team waiting, and then another group is coming in and out. So, you know, that's my job. That's what I love. Honestly, if I have a mic and I'm trying to move them as much as possible. And now I didn't before, but now due to Corona, I think we did a good job out in Twinsburg and other facilities that we did moving, making sure things was doing our best. You know, it's Corona. So only thing you can really do, honestly, is try your best and make sure you take the proper steps and make sure you're trying to move and make sure everybody has their mask on. But yeah, you know, we have a certain amount of kids in there, and you know, I just try my best to monitor them the best I can.
Thank you.
Ms. Morris, do you have any questions? Ms. Morrison?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Ms. King, do you have anything else?
No, I asked mine at the beginning.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Daniels, do you mind if I chime in here? Obviously, this was a discussion. It's kind of administrative, but we wanted to let the board know the direction we'd like to go in terms of facility rentals and things we'd like to put in place. If it's, you know, I mean, we're not voting, but I mean, if it's amenable, we'd like to try to move forward with working with Mr. Johnson and getting his program working with the rental. you know, we believe, especially working with him, it's going to be a successful venture.
So, do this require us to vote on it? Was it a vote to suspend? We just
No,
decided to do the CDC.
I did it.
CDC. No, that's fine.
Sorry,
at
Coach.
the time it was appropriate. At the time,
Yeah.
it most definitely
Right.
was appropriate. I don't see a problem with us moving forward with extending, opening up our facilities for rental, especially in that we are beginning to bring our students back into the building, and we're moving into business as usual in the district. As long as the district doesn't have any liability as it relates to cases, and as long as we don't have any liability in the event someone does not follow CDC guidelines, as long as we're not, marked with that and it's very clear, I do not see us moving forward with that course of business in which the district usually operates. So I have no objections. Are there any other discussion or objections from any other board members? So, Mr. Johnson, I would like to go ahead.
I was just saying, I agree.
Thank you. I would like to thank you for coming to the board this evening, sharing with us the things that you're doing in the community, and making your plea to us directly. It is appreciated. And good luck to you and the scholars and the athletes that will be participating in these tournaments. And we are depending on you to keep them safe and ensuring that we can keep our facilities open for rental for other people. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Coach, you're good to go.
Y'all, love y'all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You.
All right. All right. I appreciate it.
Pick
I
him
know
off
y'all
the
want me
court.
to stay. I know y'all want me to stay.
Get him off the court.
Yeah.
We're about to bench you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much.
Good night, Coach.
You're
All
welcome.
right. How do I get out of here? I'm trying to learn this stuff. Oh, okay. All right. Thank y'all.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Rest assured, board and administration, that Mr. Johnson will be signing off on a rental agreement that's going to have a lot of assurances in it.
Just to note, he's still on and not muted if we want to.
No, that's
Elma?
that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Mr. Johnson, you're going to be talking to me. He knows that. Him and I have been in conversation.
Listen, my wife won't help me, y'all. She's mad at me.
Leave.
Here
Okay,
she goes. Thank
That's
God.
not true. I
See?
am helping him.
All right,
He's
thank
not.
y'all.
Leave
I'm trying to
meeting.
get all this.
Mr. Johnson will be talking.
All right, okay.
Thank you, Shanaz.
Do we will with COVID and everything, will it require us to modify our contracts that we currently
Our
have?
rental agreements, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be talking to putting something together, and also piggybacking some advice from legal of how to put that in there and having that. And Mr. Johnson had talked about, him and I talked about this with the assurances, the indemnification, and the having a waiver and a bond should something happen. But yeah, we are not at risk. All the risk is going to be with him.
But we
So,
will,
and I hope he knows that.
we will just be modifying our contract to reflect, just to reflect new guidelines. 'Cause I guess there's new, there's new conditions to rental now that COVID
Right.
exists.
Exactly.
And Mrs. Daniels, if I may, in that same vein, we would like to invite Mr. Krasnowick as a presenter next week to talk about the future of the possibility of some folks during playoffs, like parents and things coming into the gym. So we would like to do that, to have him kind of explain, because the playoffs are coming up, and the parents have been very patient. And and as cases go down, we'd like to have him talk to the board about that.
Okay. And with us starting to kind of move forward with some of this with sports, do we know if like Music Express have any upcoming events that they're going to need to be going into?
Well, they've
The,
decided, they voted to not do their season. The kids did. But like, for example, it might be a discussion, and Mr. Krasnow will cover this as well, about the play possibility of something like that. That's not happening either, Ms. Hager. Okay.
Nothing. I mean, they can't do anything. I mean,
I think they've,
no production, at least broadcast to the district. I mean, nothing.
Music Express voted not to do any competitions. What they are doing is they are working on pieces and parts for their show that will be part of the show for next year. They could possibly do some singing. They haven't been working on the dancing, because once you build up that muscle memory in relation to a song, then that becomes difficult. So the dancing and the choreography and all of that will wait till next year, but the singing, they might be able to do something for, and Mr. Pernod does a great job of putting some things together for the community in regards to that.
the unfortunate part was that I believe Ms. Hager, correct me if I'm wrong, the music, like the vocal music folks around the state, decided to go virtual on the competition. So like, I think the kids were like, I mean, so, but I think, I mean, the choirs and things have done some virtual things, which have been good. So.
Yeah, they've done a great job. Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to that presentation. The next item on our agenda tonight is Principal Tammy Hager. Wanted to have some discussion with the board as it relates to school fees. Ms. Hager?
Thank you. Sherry, can I share a slide on the screen? Okay. We'll see if my computer will agree with me and let me do it. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to participate and to present this to the board this evening. Nothing, as you guys know, nothing about this school year has been traditional. Teachers have had to transition into online teaching, and students have had to transition into online learning. And while we have made purchases for some supplies that have been necessary for our teachers and our students, such as American history workbooks, world history workbooks, we got some government workbooks, calculators for our 9th grade students, online foreign language workbooks, and an online accounting workbook. And we have purchased some novels for English classes, although some of those novels we will use next year. We haven't made any purchases for science classes, for art classes, for gym classes. And although when students do re-enter the building, we may need to purchase some supplies for those courses, but the amount needed will be way less than was expected for a full year in-person course. Because of that, I am asking the board to consider waiving all fees for high school students, except the $50 graduation fee. I just wanted to give you an example of what a typical 9th grade student. Now, keep in mind, this is not every 9th grade high school student. It does depend on what courses they take, how many art courses they take, that sort of thing. But a typical 9th grade student would have fees that were around about $132. A typical 10th grade student could have fees ranging from $105 to $120. It could be a little bit higher if they have more art classes. 11th grade students typically have fees that range anywhere from $85 to $150. And seniors typically have fees that are around $100, plus the $50 graduation fee, which is a total of about $150. Keep in mind that I'm not asking to waive any previous unpaid fees. Any unpaid fees from previous years would still need to be paid. And those students would still have to pay those fees before they could participate in our graduation ceremony or receive their diploma.
Thank you, Ms. Hager.
No problem.
Do anyone have any questions of Ms. Hager as it relates to the waiver of the school fees for the 2021 school year? I guess I want to be real clear. This is for the 2021 school year
Yes, just for
only.
this year.
I just have a quick question. Typically, when fees are collected, do those dollars go into the budget that you utilize to purchase things that the department needs? Is that where the fees typically land?
Exactly right, Ms. King. We have a 009 fund. It's called the Uniform School Fees.
Yep.
009 USS. We usually put that money in there to offset, and that's where all the costs for the extra supplies come from, where those fees go. However, that fund, what ends up happening, especially for our district, if you're free and reduced, your fee is waived automatically. That's to say, now we're all free breakfast and lunch, but that still doesn't resolve the obligation of those that they still have to fill out the free and reduced forms to get your fees waived. In the past, we've been subsidizing that those fees to the tune of $35,000 a year to $40,000 a year. By waiving fees, it really is just a small drop in the bucket of revenues that we get out of that 009. We've been subsidizing. So I'm thinking anywhere, we're going to subsidize, since we didn't have a whole lot of fees this year, we're probably going to subsidize maybe additional $5,000 from waiving these fees, which really isn't a lot.
Thank you.
I don't necessarily have a question for Tammy, but for Ms. Hager, but thank you for bringing this to us. I think that our families would be very appreciative of this, just considering COVID and everything that our families have been dealing with during this pandemic. My question is, what have we thought about the school fees of other buildings?
You're muted out.
No, I got it. We don't charge school fees in the other buildings. We've kind of like waived all those and don't collect. It was really the high school. So we've gotten away from the school fees. We were just buying what children need in the other buildings, especially at the elementary level. And we've just we're doing the high school because it's a lot of more lab English, like reading books and gym uniforms and cap and gown and those type of fees, versus there are other schools that don't incur those.
Thank you.
Yep.
So just could you clarify for me, Mr. Saluka, how much will this cost the district in order to waive these fees?
You know what? I haven't done the calculation yet. Let me get with Tammy and we'll take a look at that for 1 year. I can't think it'll be more than $5,000 for everything that's going on. And we really haven't purchased, might even be a little smaller, Tammy, is what you're saying? No, a little higher.
No, it will be a little bit higher than that, yes.
But see, the problem I have is I have to look and see which students are free and reduced, because not everybody that's had to go through and have those fees on there, we have to check and see which ones will get waived at the end of the year. So we have to look through that.
Currently, we have about 491 students that are direct certification for free and reduced lunch. And that's a potential of 491 students that would have their fees waived. However, there is a form that they have to fill out. They have to agree to share that information with us. And if they share that information with us saying that their fees can be waived, then there's at least a potential of 491. I think currently right now, I was talking to Carol, and there's 88 that have the free and reduced form that have been filled out.
And a lot of these
That's
fees,
a big number.
correct me if I'm wrong, Tammy, a lot of these fees also are class specific.
Yes, yeah, they're very.
So
they're
not
very
everybody
class-
is taking the same classes and incurring the same fees. So that's the other thing that we'd have to look at. I mean, we could get that number for you, Ms. Daniels, probably by the board meeting next week.
Yeah, if I can find out just how much it's gonna cost. the
Absolutely, we can do
district,
that.
Because some of the students are BDA and stuff, they might not even be utilizing the fees this year, like they normally would
Right.
have required. And then just want to know the rationale for excluding the graduation fee.
Listen, if you guys want to pay for the graduation fee, I'm all for it too.
Okay, let's not get crazy here. I'm
No,
sorry.
nothing crazy, but I just
No, I'm just
wanted
kidding.
to know the
No, that's
rationale.
just, yeah. No,
I just
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
know the rationale.
I don't want to ask for too much. And with
That was
the
a treasure in me.
right. And with the graduation fee that typically pays for their cap and gown and their diploma and the diploma covers and the costs associated with those.
Well, I mean, I guess having the regular fees waived this school year will be a big help to families, even if they still needed to pay the graduation, fee. So I just wanted to know the rationale. And now I know it's owl.
Yeah.
But I'm always willing to say yes, waive them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good to know.
Mhm.
Any questions? Ms. King, do you have any questions for Ms. Hager as it relates to the school fee waiver?
No, just the one question I asked earlier about the pot of money, and I thought it was the school uniform pot. That's all.
Okay, Ms. Thomas, any more questions? Ms. Morrison?
Nope.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Hager, for coming to share that. And thank you so much for just having our families and our students and the hardships that they're facing during COVID-19. It's just been really nice that the school and the district has done a lot of things to just support the students, not just academically, but just meeting some of the families' other needs. And that just goes a long way with our school community. So thank you so much, Ms. Hager, for presenting that to the board today.
No problem. Thank you for considering it.
Thank you, Ms. Hager.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you and good night. Our next item for discussion is Ms. Riesland, and she's going to be discussing the hybrid learning model with us during this work session this evening.
Hi, thanks for having me tonight. I am going to be discussing the updated hybrid learning plan. I think for most people listening, it's going to sound somewhat familiar, but we do have a couple little tweaks that I am anxious to communicate. When you see this listed here in orange, those are some of the changes, and we'll talk about all of them in depth. So beginning March 1st, our students are going to return to in-person learning for the hybrid model. We are going to continue with the original 2-1-2 framework. We are going to continue with the original cohort model, loosely divided by alphabet. Our family groups will remain intact. However, new is that students who wish to remain fully remote may sign up to do so without enrolling in the BDA. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then asynchronous Wednesdays will remain during the hybrid model. So our hybrid model structure, we are going to keep those two cohorts, the group A and group B. Group A students, again, loosely based on alphabet, A to K, will attend in person on Mondays and Tuesdays, while group B, the L to Z kids, will attend in person on Thursdays and Fridays. Those Wednesdays will remain the workshop Wednesday, a little bit of a reset day. But one of the nice changes that we've made to this model is that when students are not physically present in the building, we are going to allow them to Zoom into their classrooms. So this is a little bit of a change from our previous model where we were doing 2 days in and 2 days strictly asynchronous. We are now going to call this concurrent learning, so the kids will learn right along with their peers who are present in the classroom. Concurrent learning, this is what it looks like, and bear with me because this is a mouthful. The Group A students will attend school Mondays and Tuesdays. They'll do their asynchronous remote small group work on Wednesdays, and then they will Zoom into their classes on Thursdays and Fridays. The Group B kids, they just alternate that. They Zoom in on Mondays and Tuesdays and report in person on Thursdays and Fridays. So the nice thing about this model is it allows for some consistency in the classroom. It gets kids interacting with their teachers and peers 4 days a week. And the real beauty of the concurrent learning is that we can open this up to families who still wish to remain home during the pandemic, and we don't have to force them to enroll in the BDA and change their schedules and or their teachers. So they will simply Zoom into the classroom all 4 days each week. And just for organizational purposes, we can call that Group C. Our workshop Wednesdays, again, they'll remain intact. We'll use them as a reset day. Teachers will continue having their small group meetings, their office hours, and their teacher collaboration time. And so in closing, many of our logistics remain the same. We've got that 2-1-2 hybrid model. We are trying to meet the needs of all learners because I know that people, still have some concerns. And if we can kind of offer a solution to people who want to stay home and people who want to attend classes, which quite honestly, based on our most recent parent survey, is really 50-50. 50% of our parents and kids do want to come to in-person learning, then I think that this particular model will suit everybody's learning needs. So building principals and teachers will certainly be in touch with students soon, letting them know what cohort they are in. And anyone who is interested in this virtual learning sign up, wanting to be part of that Group C, information will be available on the website on Friday. So you can stay tuned for that. Any questions for me?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It feels, I know that I'm very much satisfied that with the new hybrid model that you guys have presented, that there will be no gaps as it relates to the time of instruction that students will be receiving, and that we won't have our teachers reteaching during the week. So I'm very satisfied with this. Most definitely not the most ideal way for students to be educated, but I do feel the best way that we can get all of our students access to their educational content in the midst of recovering through a pandemic. One question that I need clarification on is, if families signed up for the BDA for semester 2 that was not already signed up for semester 1, are those families being asked to sign up as Group C? Are those families in the BDA, or are those families being recommended to sign up as Group C?
That's exactly right. So we currently have students who are already enrolled in the BDA, and we are going to leave those kids, those classes, and those teachers completely intact. We are not going to open it up again. So if you are enrolled in the BDA, there is nothing that you need to do at this time. For families who want to stay home, they will need to sign up again in this Group C. We did toss out all of that previous data for semester 2. And we did that because the previous sign up was in the middle of January, and cases were high, positivity rates were high, and families were clearly uncomfortable with coming back. We figured that with a March 1st start, people might have a different perspective. Cases have been consistently decreasing, as have the positivity rates, and people just might feel a little more comfortable with the idea of springtime, being outside more, windows open. They might be a little more comfortable sending their kids to school. So we decided it was just easier to toss that data, start fresh. So on Friday, there will be a sign up for a group C for anyone who wants to stay home and be virtual learners, ultimately for the remainder of the school year. They do not need to change classes. They do not need to change teachers. They will be Zooming in to their regular schedule with their classmates and their teachers.
So instead of just tossing that information, why didn't like this building principals just reach out to them families and say, because I can see the confusion already. I'm feeling a little confused myself. I don't know if it's just me, where families like, am I signed up? Am I not? Where do my kids go?
When we canceled school, the return for the January 25th, we told the families then that their information has been completely erased. And so I didn't want them to go, well, you told us it was erased. Is it erased? So we already told them then that we would start fresh for March 1st. So I just wanted to keep that message consistent. And we will have, those signups, and I am certain that building principals are going to have to reach out to families, for clarification as well.
Sherry's here. I did have a question about connectivity in the buildings. I know that we've never we didn't quite have technology expanded in our buildings like we're expecting it to now with all the teachers. You didn't use the internet to connect with the students. I mean, we're going to be heavy on the technology side in the buildings, maybe like never before. I know that we talked about some grants and some upgrades and stuff like that. Were those put in place to support this robust method in which we're doing the education within the school buildings now?
Yes, so actually, although we were not one-to-one where students took home our devices, we were heading down that path. And in the middle school, our sixth graders already had devices they were carrying around with them in the building. And although we added some more Chromebooks, most of the Chromebooks that we've had, our students were using, only we were using them as carts. So now we've done away with that cart model, and our students have been assigned a device for the whole year. So our internet will definitely, inside the building, our wireless internet will definitely support all of the devices. And you're right, we did expand outdoor access. So as the weather gets nice, and if somebody needed to come up to a building to use outdoor internet, that is definitely something that we're expanding. So, if we want to spread out the students more, they're working on some type of research and they want to be outside. So I'm very confident that all of the Chromebooks that we have and our internet will definitely support it. Also, we did submit via E-rate, which is a federal program, to expand our capacity from the district to our internet provider, which is called Connect, and we've expanded that as well. So we're in a very good place to support whether our students are at school. And ultimately, they will be, whenever we get back, when we all get back, we will have the capabilities to support everything in student learning.
Mrs. Daniels, if you don't mind, I'd like to thank Mrs. Bailey for being very proactive. The expansion of the internet pipe is something, it's like kind of like plumbing. You only notice it when it doesn't work, right? So like with that pipe being expanded, we're in a really good situation in terms of being able to have the kids all be able to connect at school.
Thank you, Mr. Henke. One last thing I'll just mention is we are doing things in the classrooms to help our teachers teaching in the classrooms and eventually with the concurrent learning, whether with students there and online, with adding webcams, adding some classroom sound for our rooms that don't have that. So we're definitely looking at all of those capabilities to make it easier for our teachers to teach.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And so, I don't know if all the board members had an opportunity to be introduced to the new school's
Ow.
mascot, which is the owl. But if you can explain, how will our teachers be teaching in person and virtually effectively?
Correct. So every teacher in a classroom with a desktop computer, we also were able to provide them with a Chromebook, and that Chromebook has a webcam and a microphone in there as well. We also purchased webcams to connect to the desktops in the classrooms, and teacher desktops are typically connected to the projectors within the rooms. But we're also looking at, each situation a little bit differently, whether you're a science teacher and you're doing experiments. We bought some cables and a mount to possibly move that webcam to make it more of a document camera, depending what is going on in the classroom. Our elementary schools have teachers wear lavalier microphones to have reinforced sound in the classroom, but our middle school and high schools do not. But we will have that in place for them with a lavalier mic before March 1st. Those are already been ordered. Now, you had an opportunity to see that owl camera. We're definitely looking at scenarios in classrooms. In this particular case, we ordered a couple to test in some of our special ed rooms where we have students coming back on Tuesdays and Thursdays already. They have students at home still, just like we're talking about when Mrs. Reisel was talking about concurrent learning.
Mm-hmm.
And the really cool features of this camera, it gives you a 360 view of the entire room. And after 5 seconds of talking, the camera will zoom in on whomever's talking, whether it's the person at home or a person or a teacher, a student in the classroom. So we're definitely looking at situations and rooms where that would be definitely an enhancement. So we're trying to have, multiple cameras with the Chromebooks and the desktop webcams. We're also looking at situations where we could use this owl camera, which actually makes an owl sound when you turn it on. It's cool. It is really cool. So we're just looking at different options so we can, these are uncharted territories, so we can put the right tools in place to help the teachers teach and the students learn. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did.
Okay, good.
Just kind of wanted to know.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool piece of technology.
So we do have some of our teachers using.
Well, we ordered 2 as a pilot, basically, one for a middle school special ed classroom and one for a high school classroom. But we're in the process of looking to see where it might suit its needs to order more. Unfortunately, it's an expensive item, so we're trying to come up with some creative funds to purchase more.
Mr. Hanke may have taken control of one of the owls, Mrs. Daniels. We actually, it's been really good for, because we have meetings where folks are, calling in or whatever, and it's been great for that. Like when we've tested it a couple times. So
actually, I think it would be a really good recommendation for board meetings before we went back to all virtual. When we were in the little theater and all of you were there, yet our audience was elsewhere, it would give you, I think, a really nice 360 view of the entire board administration. And it would be able to automatically zoom in on board members or superintendent or Al when you're talking, or Sean. So I think for future planning, it's something we should consider. But, like with anything, you want to get it and test it first to make sure it does what it says it's going to do. So.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Ms. Reisland. I just wanted, it's point of clarification that the synchronous days are gone. Those will be concurrent days. So students will be required to log in and zoom into their classroom on the day that they're not physically present.
That is correct.
Okay,
except for Wednesday. Wednesday is still asynchronous. I had another preschool and low incident. Will they be returning? What will their schedule look like come March 1st?
We are still working through that. We should have information soon to the families. They still will be attending on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but we will communicate that information to the families once we get everybody back starting on March 1st or beforehand.
And all the same safety protocols as before. And did we ever resolve the lunchroom issue? Will the students be eating in their room or in the lunchrooms?
So they're going to still continue to eat in their lunchrooms. At this point, we did get some guidance from the Department of Health. Mr. Hinkie was in a call the other day with that. Again, still the 3 to 6 feet guidance as much as possible. But again, that's the only time students will be permitted to have their masks off when they're eating.
In their classrooms, Mr.
In the classroom,
In the classroom.
except for the high school.
Yeah,
High school will be, the periods are going to be such that they will be able to take their food, eat in the cafeteria, and maintain social distancing there for that short period of time. There is enough capacity in that room we can meet that 3 to 6 feet the way the schedule's going. Is that correct, Mrs. Reisland? We should be able to do that. But everybody else will be eating in their classroom. Middle schoolers will be picking up their lunch and carrying to their classroom. Elementary schools will be picking up their lunch from the carts.
So our cafeterias are not large enough for students to socially distance at lunchtime?
They are not. No, not at the elementaries nor middle school.
Can we talk a little bit to the small amount of students, to the number of students that will be in the buildings? I know when I went on my tour, we kind of discussed, how small the percentage of students is that will be in the building.
In terms of what we can expect about who's, so our full would be our full, that would be half, right? It'd be half, but it's going to be less than that based on the data we had initially. Is that right, Mrs. Reisland? So
yeah, so we've got about 3,300 kids total. And right now we have just over 800 already in the BDA. There's 826 in the BDA right now. So that already takes a large chunk of kids, right off the top. So then we're looking at that next group. And when we have parents sign up for the group C, that's going to take another large group of kids off the top, especially, and like I said, our last data it's now about 3 weeks old. So I can't say exactly, but there was as we told you in our last meeting, there was a rather large increase in BDA enrollments. I got to imagine that a large, some of those people will still sign up to stay virtual, which is perfectly acceptable. So that's going to make that group that we are, splitting in half even smaller. And that's okay. It's a little bit different mindset. I think we were thinking we're going to teach this large group in front of us and have 2 or 3 maybe Zooming, but I think it's going to be the other way around based on the data that I have. I think it'll be more of like, a handful in front of you and the majority will be Zooming. So I think it's just a little bit of a mindset switch, which is okay. And again, we're just looking to meet the needs of the learners, that we've got a lot of people who want to come in, a lot of people who want to stay home, people who are nervous and unsure. It's a lot of emotions and it's a lot of different feelings. And I think if we can meet all of these needs, it'll really be helpful for the kids.
anecdotally, Ms. Thomas, from adjacent districts, it seems, now again, I don't have numbers, but I just talking to other superintendents, they're right around us. it seems like as they have transitioned back, they do not have a large amount of students that are attending in person right now. Now that could change as numbers change, and we'll be flexible with that. In terms of infection numbers and vaccine and things of that nature.
And are there any barriers to just like the educators dually teaching in person and virtually? I mean, it sounds like with the technology we have in place, and I guess when the students having the opportunity to come back, be in person, have, some of their days. But have you guys identified just any barriers as it relates to this model and how we're going to remedy it?
Yeah, we've, I think it's just a little bit different way of thinking. One of the drawbacks of the previous model, having the asynchronous days, was going to be basically just keeping your sanity as a teacher going, I saw this group and I taught this group this, and now I've seen this group and I'm teaching the same thing. Did I remember to tell you this? Did I give you the homework? Wait, and because it's confusing doing it twice. People were concerned about not seeing their kids for 4 days a week. There's plenty of programming and instructional, programming that we currently offer, such as Heggerty Phonics, that needs to be implemented every day consistently. And I know that teachers were concerned about, well, what do we do with these kids on those days? And we were already looking at ways how to Zoom and maybe do something like that with the kids who needed it. So I think, this is a little bit different. And it's a little mindset switch. But I think for continuity's sake, both for the teacher with the lesson planning and the lesson execution throughout the week, it will balance out with the trying to manage 2 places at once. We've started pulling together some different instructional strategies, and I started creating a document that I'm working on getting out to the teachers so that they can start thinking about this. And of course, we have them coming back on Wednesday to work in person. So it's helpful that they'll be back for a few weeks so they can kind of get their room set up. Where's the best place for my camera? What do I want this to look like? Do I need a whiteboard behind me? Do I want the document camera? They're going to have some time to kind of maneuver and play around with their things to kind of get their feet, get their bearings and get used to their rooms and what they're doing. So I think, there isn't really a one size fits all, like everyone should do it this way. It really just depends on what they're doing and who's in front of them and who's Zooming. I think you need to take those things into consideration. But we've been prepping them and sending them information, and I think that they're going to be just fine. I think given the fact that they've been remote teaching all this time, they really do have a good toolbox built up, and it'll translate well.
Yeah, they've done a phenomenal job to just executing the virtual learning environment for the students in the district. I mean,
they sure have.
They really have. Ms. Thomas, do you have any questions? Ms. King? Ms. Morrison?
Yeah, I just have one question.
Sure.
Now, can families opt to have some of their children come back and some of them stay and see?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else you would like to share with us, Ms. Riseland?
No, I'm good.
I would also, Superintendent, like to commend my more team members here, Mrs. Riseland, for the adjustment. Lessons learned from other districts, right? From doing the other districts that did the asynchronous, and then synchronous. And this is going to, I think, benefit us. And I am so super excited to see the kids again, right? I mean, that's just, it's been some time, and I really am excited to welcome them back. So I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, I know the students are ready to come back. Teachers are ready to see their students. I think we I think we had a discussion about it in our equity task force meeting, just about the community that exists within the school buildings that you just miss in the virtual setting. So it's very exciting to be able to have some of our students back, and just the fact that you guys are still, we're going to be able to have some students come virtually and still be a part of that community. So that's,
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Reisland, for all of your work with this hybrid plan. I like it.
You're welcome.
I do too.
Good, I'm glad.
Of course, you know, it's nothing is ideal, but I think we are giving our students the best access to education that we can with the resources that we do have with this model. So thank you, guys. Okay, if there's not anything else, thank you, Ms. Reisland. The next order of business, and I think that's usually you too, Ms. Reisland, the calendar. I think last time we discussed this with you.
Yeah, she can chime in. I'm actually doing the calendar work.
Oh.
Yeah, see? Now, actually, no, I should take that back. Mrs. Reisland, thank you for all your help developing the calendar. I'm presenting it, so I'm not going to take her word from her. Would like to tell the public what needs to happen per board policy. Let me make sure I get the board policy right. I believe it's IC/ICA. The Board of Education has to have just a calendar hearing. It's kind of like the tax budget hearing, right? So we present the calendar. So what I did was I emailed the board members the calendar, and I'm going to share my screen. Make sure I get the right one. Can everybody see that well?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So what we do when we develop the calendar for the year is we obviously look over the previous year's calendar, and also we collaborate together as a cabinet to try to come up with a calendar that we believe is the best for kids, right? So I want to go over some things that have been a little different compared to previous calendars. Now, first of all, the calendar this past year is an outlier. We started after Labor Day, and you know, we had it was what it was in terms of trying to figure out how to work with COVID. Some lessons we learned are that we were probably starting, we believed, a little too early in August. It caused us to have issues because there's some contractual concerns with classified folks and also administrative folks where they start August 1st, and then we had to roll right into the school year. So what we did is we moved that forward a little bit, where the new teachers are reporting on the 20th. And then we have our 2 professional development days for the staff on the 23rd and 24th, with school starting on August 25th. One of the things we do take into account is trying to break up various days off and breaks. So, for example, we have Labor Day in September, but then the rest are instructional days. Any OEA day is a contractual day with OPSI and the GHTA, where it's a day not in the calendar. All that means is that particular day just isn't there, but it doesn't count against the instructional days. We do put conferences in the calendars. In the elementary schools, they do have conferences during one daytime. So we do have that there in October. We also, if you move on to November, we have a PD day on the 2nd, and then middle and high school conferences. And then the 24th is another contractual day where the teachers that work all of the conference time in the evenings, that becomes a no school day for them. We do try our best to have, quite frankly, a robust winter break. We did have to shave a couple of days off there. The 25th is on a Saturday, so we moved that forward a little bit there. So our last day of instruction is the 21st. Winter break then continues to the 3rd with a PD day on the 14th, followed by Martin Luther King Day on the 17th, with some conferences at night on the 20th and 27th. Moving into February, we have another round of high school conferences, a PD day on the 18th, on the 21st as President's Day. This happens every so often, and we have to have a discussion about it. Spring break or Easter break, we tend to correlate our spring break around Easter, but sometimes that falls late. And so what we like to do is try to have it in March, in late March. So it breaks up it's kind of a natural break. And then we add a couple of days around the Easter holiday. Moving into May, it's straight instruction except for Memorial Day. And then because of starting later in August, it does push us into June, with the 9th being a professional development day. Actually, and since Mrs. Reisland's here, do you want to comment kind of on the PD and the amount of days and everything?
Yeah, sure. So we have very few PD days built into this calendar. We've got, the opening days are considered professional development days at the very beginning of the year, those 2 days. And then basically we just have election day in November and then one in February. And then we also have built into the collective bargaining agreement, this January PD always happens during the semester, like rollover. And we do that, they get a half day for records to complete semester, grades and exams and get those marks in. And then at the end of the year, that's also part of the collective bargaining agreement. The very last day of school is always a teacher in service day. And again, that's, to wrap up grades and finalize their records and get all of those things squared away. So we have very few professional development days. This is a very traditional school calendar. There is, nothing flashy about it. Start at the end of August, get out in June, and have all the usual, breaks and days. There's really nothing to write home about. And then just one thing to piggyback on what Mr. Hankey said with the Easter break. We went to that end of March week when testing came about with the OST and the EOCs, because typically our testing window is in April. And we don't actually have the testing window this far in advance yet from the state, but typically it's like the last week of March and then all through April. So this gives us adequate time to get all of our testing done throughout the month of April. When Easter is early, like it is this year, we have break attached to it, but we come back and it's still April 12th. So there's still quite a bit of time left in the testing window to get that done. So, again, this is a very traditional school calendar. Not much to comment on. That's it.
180 instructional days with 6 PD days, Mrs. Reisland, or is that right? Okay.
And we are moving forward with eliminating late arrival Thursday for the 21-22 school year.
Yes. Quite frankly, I think there are other opportunities at the end of days for PD. I think this is what's best for our families. That was my recommendation when I had Mrs. Reisland put this calendar together. I truly believe that classroom time is important. I think we can get our TBT and OIP work done exclusive of the late arrival Thursdays.
Was late arrival Thursdays a PBIS initiative?
No, it was it was an opportunity for professional development that focused on teacher-based teams with data and also assessments and assessment generation and collaboration. I think we have enough time to go accomplish those things. And I would prefer our kids have some more time in front of teachers.
So when are we gonna fit that time in? Was that valuable to the district and the success of our students?
I think that.
Or are we eliminating it?
No. Well, some of the time's eliminated, but I think we have the time to do the collaboration TBT time. We have some time at the end of the day. We also have the PD time, and we have various initiatives like data days and things of that nature, where we do substitute work with throughout the day with teachers so they can go over their classroom data. Mrs. Rise, you want to chime in on some other opportunities for that?
Yeah, if I could speak to it a little bit, I participated in TBT for about 1.5 years in the district. And I would have to agree with Mr. Hankey that our students having that face-to-face time would be more beneficial than the teacher-based teams.
And they'll still exist, Ms. Thomas, as I said. It's just that the time's going to be different. We still are going to do our TBT work.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Will it be consistent? You know, just like, because I do agree that Thursday, late arrival Thursday, I do agree with eliminating it, but I just want to make sure that with eliminating that Thursday, that we do have a plan for consistency for those TBT teams and things of that sort, and just kind of not just fitting it in, or, you know, will there be a level of consistency like late arrival Thursday provided for those opportunities? My question.
So I absolutely, first of all, believe we will have a plan for that. I think Mrs. Rise and Ms. Costa do a great job ensuring that various teams meet regularly and are able to collaborate together. Ms. Rise, you want to speak to it a little bit more?
Yeah, and every day at the end of the day, the teachers have about 30 minutes that from the time like kids leave the building to the time that their contractual day ends. So typically before we did late arrival Thursday, we did all of our TBT work then. So when we added the late arrival Thursday, it was just an additional, amount of time. So they still have that daily time at the end of the school day to meet, to collaborate, and to work through the OIP process. We're actually in the process right now of kind of streamlining the whole OIP process. We're getting what we're calling a reboot, the 2.0 version. Some of the things that we were doing were a little bit, I don't know if I want to say outdated. They've sort of addressed some of the things in the process and updated it. And now we're just getting trained on it. So I'm hopeful that we can streamline the process a bit as well.
Yeah, I think, there's that whole argument, quality versus quantity, right? And that's not saying anything about anybody. I'm just talking about, but focusing your work a bit, sometimes it's helpful.
I do have a few questions about the calendar. I see that there's a start date for grades 1 through 12. Does kindergarten start at that same date?
We typically start at kindergarten a few weeks later, or a week later. What we do is we do assessments with the kindergarten students as they come in. They typically start the second week afterwards, and we usually communicate that with the families.
Okay, is that something that we can add to this calendar?
Yeah, we can put it on for the final approval, Ms. Thomas, for the regular March meeting.
Thank you. And then can we also add the quarter ending dates as well?
Yep.
And then last question, am I a little outdated in thinking that the day of prom, we typically had the students had off?
Yes. I think
it just kind of felt that way. I feel like it.
Well,
when I was in school, it felt that way.
We sometimes made it fall that way back, but it's time for we've not been doing that for a few years. Yes.
Okay.
And we do realize that sometimes on the prom day, there is some attendance issues, but we deal with that in due course. So.
Thank you.
Good old fashioned senior cut day.
You have that, all those things, but we encourage all the students to come on every instructional day.
Absolutely.
So.
Ms. King, do you have any questions as it relates to the calendar?
No, you actually asked my question earlier about late arrival Thursday.
Thank you. Ms. Morrison?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. And Ms. Thomas, do you have any more questions as it relates to the calendar? No. And Mr. Hankey and Ms. Reisland, do you have any other comments to share with the board as it relates to the calendar?
No, just again, I thank Mrs. Reisland actually and Mrs. Miller, my administrative assistant, who does work heavily on this, and the rest of our team has a look at this calendar. As Mrs. Reisland said, this is a pretty traditional school calendar, which we hope will be for a traditional year.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. And so we can expect the hearing for this calendar at which board meeting? If you can
This is the
clarify. Hearing,
and then at the regular March board meeting, it will be on the agenda for approval.
How I know that last time when we had a hearing as it related to the calendar, the public was invited to ask questions, and I don't think that board notice was necessarily clear. So our March board meeting, let me see, what date is that? I mean, is it possible for us? Because usually we didn't even make an announcement that if anybody from the public wanted to weigh in, and that we were open this up for hearing for input. So
well, I
do apologize that I thought it was discussion in preparation for the hearing.
We could open it up for discussion as a non-agenda item during the regular meeting on Monday. And also folks are certainly they may email me directly with calendar questions.
Okay. You understand where my place of confusion is coming as it relates to this. I just don't feel like I wasn't even clear, so.
And we can also what we did last year is I just wanted to make sure that we met our legal obligation here. But we can also log in if you'd like, Mrs. Daniels, like 30 minutes early during the regular meeting next week.
Yeah, I was just saying maybe put it on there. We already had our discussion, even if we set the hearing for 15 minutes prior to the regular meeting, so we can give ample notice of a hearing, and that way we can.
I just wanted to ensure, because of the dates, that this is technically the hearing for the 30-day legal notice, and then we can log in early on Monday and invite the public to comment. Does that make some sense?
That's fine, because we didn't know. 3:15. So yeah, we'll be a few days off. March 15th is our okay. Yeah, so just next time, just so we'll be a little more
And our meeting's on the 16th, am I correct?
Yes. Our meeting is
So it's
on
Tuesday as opposed to Monday.
For this month. For this month, yes. Not for March. For this month, yes.
For this month. And then it's the 15th of March. But Monday is a holiday, so it'll be on Tuesday. Okay, thank you for that. I mean, is that understand why I question that
Yeah,
in that manner? Because I just didn't feel like this was kind of jumbled up. And usually the hearing is outside of the meeting and not within the meeting, was my experience last time. So, but last year we didn't have work sessions and things of that sort also. So,
correct. This is something new that,
Yes.
so I wanted to make sure we utilize the work session, but to your point, Mrs. Daniels, we do need to share with the public. So we'll do that at the meeting, but then we'll also be able to meet the legal requirement of the 30.
yeah, because even posted, was this calendar even posted with the notice of the hearing?
No, the calendar wasn't posted. It usually is not. It's
And
usually.
we usually present it, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure we
Sure.
do our due diligence, as far as getting, the public's, if the public has any comments as it relates to it and what
Yep.
appropriate.
And again, people are more than happy. I'll be able to answer any questions personally as well. And Mrs. Bailey, if we could just make that happen where we log in at, I don't know, like 5:40 on Monday. Does that make sense, Mrs. Daniel?
Yeah, just a few minutes.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep. I don't think we need a whole 30 minutes. Just a few.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Thank you,
Say that
Ms.
it's
King.
Tuesday.
That always gets me these
Tuesday.
2 months. So
If there's not any more discussion as it relates to the calendar hearing, we can move on to our next item of discussion on our agenda tonight, which is we wanted to discuss the board committees and possibly making some modifications as it relates to the committees that we have now. I do know that one point of discussion was to have some board committees that actually will align with our strategic plan and the work that we will be doing with that strategic plan, and just kind of looking at some other, just do the committees we have, are they working to benefit the district and the direction that it's going and the board work that we're doing in our goals. And then also, is there any that that we may need to add and restructure? If not a board committee, just even I know some of our board members actually sit on some administrative committees, and some of the committees that may be suggested as a board committee might necessarily just be an administrative committee that has a board liaison on it, just like our equity task force, COVID task force. And then we also had the strategic plan steering committee. So as we open up the floor, relative to the committees, I do want to share, not share on the screen because I'm not that fancy yet, but I had sent, and I do apologize, Ms. Morrison, I'm going to email you shortly, but I did a little research relates to some of the committees that some of our neighboring districts have, and I had sent that over to you guys. I do want to recommend that we keep intact our legislative committee, and most definitely our policy committee needs to stay intact. I spoke with Mr. Hankey just about our board committees at a meeting, and he did share with me that he would really like for the board to be more active legislatively in some matters that's, come down the pike, and want Garfield Heights to our Board of Education to have more, I guess, a thumbprint with the way things are moving legislatively in the state of Ohio as it relates to just the education legislation, and just us having our thumb on the pulse and sending out advocacy and testifying and making sure that Garfield Heights has a voice with our state legislators when they go to represent the people in the community. And I thought that that was important too.
yeah,
I
Mrs. Bailey.
personally,
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, I would really, so one of the things, when I came on as superintendent was to really kind of expand our contact with state legislators. We always had good relationships with our state legislators. Representative House and Senator Williams are very responsive to me. And we also have, between Ohio School Boards Association, BASA, which is the Superintendents Association, and OASBO, the Treasurers Association, we have some common lobbying partners. And it would be, I think it would be beneficial if, I know we have like a legislative liaison now kind of structure, but if we had a committee where we could maybe, you could do things like invite the legislators to meet with us. Also, I wrote to the board on Friday that there are going to be hearings. Where the first ring has a lobbying arm as well. There are going to be hearings where we're trying to lobby to waive testing requirements, state testing requirements for this year. And sometimes it's powerful if board members also go to those types of things. But I think that there's some training and coordination that needs to happen there. When you do that type of thing. I am new to it. I was supposed to go tomorrow, but this always happens apparently, like these hearings get moved. So I'm kind of getting trained too by Retzel and Andrus, our first ring lobbyists.
Okay.
And I think that they would be thrilled actually if more folks got involved when we had things come down the pipe. For example, as Mr. Saluka will tell you, this is a budget year. And beyond budget in the state of Ohio, a lot of this stuff's going to be education related. So for example, do we want to take a position on, here's a small one, they're going to be sunsetting the rule that public districts can have online education exclusively. So do we say as a board and the superintendent, do we want to, maybe approach the legislators with something like that? So I think it's really also just generally very interesting to see, and to be able to affect change at that level. So that's my thought there is as I spoke to you, Mrs. Daniels, about maybe having more of a board committee for that, if that makes some sense.
Do anybody have any comment or suggestion as we discuss our legislative board committee, or any objection to versus us being a legislative liaison, that we actually do some committee work?
My only comment would be that if it is a true committee, that it has to be open to the public. So we have to make all of those arrangements when we're going to have formal committees.
Mr. Saluka, do they have to be open to the public if there's less than 3 board members? They still do?
Yes, it does. And you also, if you meet, should have a notice sent out that you're meeting.
Got it.
Yeah, those committees meet the sunshine law because you're discussing school business for the official committee of the board.
And so right now, and that will be the shift that we will make, because right now our committees are not really committees. We're just liaisons,
Right.
Yes.
So if we're going into the creating committees to really do work behind the scenes, they will be formal committees that will have to have formal notice, and also be open to the public. So, I'm in agreement that we do need to look at some of those key areas in which we need committees to begin this work and to make this transition. I think that some of what we now call committees, which are really liaisons, may be able to fall up under, will kind of dissolve and become an actual committee.
I agree. And our policy committee most definitely would just stay intact
Just formalize it some more and do the note, the notices and things of that nature. Yeah.
Just as we're moving forward with rolling out the district's strategic plan, I don't necessarily believe that we need a committee per se for every leg, but I just want to share the legs that we've already been presented, just to kind of have an idea of what committee work. And even prioritizing it, because there's going to be a lot of work to even as we vote for, even as we put the strategic plan on the floor, there's still a lot of work as far as our development and how we're going to really move this thing forward. Just having the plan in place is just one piece of the pie. So just even as a board, we don't want to bite off more than we can chew as we're creating these committees. We know what some committees may just need to lie dormant for a while. We know in the future that we may need this to move that, but we're still in the planning and movement stage. And even with the strategic plan, I think even this year versus having different committees for different legs, I think we just really need to continue to have something that resembles like our steering committee that was in place in development of it, as we're kind of getting it kicked off and getting buy-in from everyone. I mean, it's still a lot of work to do before we get to the work of it. And I think what will be more possibly appropriate is really having a committee that's committed to continue to map that out, and and have the input. But the legs that we do have is teaching and learning, resources and facilities, holistic student success, DEI, family, and community engagement. So I just want to have some discussion on what are you guys' thoughts as it relates to moving forward with what do you think the committee should look like in support of us moving our strategic plan forth in this first leg of it.
Can you repeat the legs, please?
Yes, it is teaching and learning. Resources and facilities is number 2. Number 3 is holistic student success. Number 4 is diversity and inclusion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And number 5 is family and community engagement.
Thank you.
Mrs. Daniels, I'm putting them in the chat, and I should know these off the top of my head. We have teaching and learning. What was the second one again?
Resources and facilities.
And then DEI. Family. Okay.
So right now we already have a equity task force that could continue as a task force and maybe roll into, as the strategic plan gets a little further underway, roll into a formalized committee, but we can continue to keep the task force. I think with resource and facilities, the way that I understood that it was more of like financial resources and facilities. So that might be like a finance facility or operations type committee. Teaching and learning, I think there's a lot that would fall under teaching and learning with really helping the public understand the data, informing our board of the data. So I think that would definitely be, and it could even be teaching and learning and the holistic child. Actually, I'll take that back. I think the one about the holistic, and I'm saying it wrong. Holistic child success.
Holistic student success.
Student success might.
We are looking at Ms. King to kind of shorten that name up a bit, because it's
Like
a little,
maybe like
it's,
student achievement or something.
well, no, we're looking at like wellness or well-being kind of thing, because it's clunky.
Yeah. But I think some of that had to do with social and emotional learning and meeting students where they're at and getting them what they need. And so maybe that and family and community engagement, maybe in the beginning, could be one big committee. Just some thoughts.
Just thinking when we are considering board committees, just I want to think about where our district needs board input. I don't think we should, just going back to that whole micromanaging thing, I don't think we should put ourselves in places where we don't really belong, so to say.
I agree. And I kind of, as I was kind of looking, I do think that as the board is developing, supporting the district strategic plan and its goals, I almost feel like that almost just for now, because then we'll know where we need to be once we really know where we're taking strategic plan and, what shoes it's going to take to make these legs walk. Just really creating a committee where we can, as we're just moving this thing forward, just for the strategic plan. And I did see where actually Cuyahoga Heights has they call it the best strategic plan committee. It's actually an administrative committee in that district with a board appointment. So a board member sits on that committee, similar to our equity task force now, our COVID task force, things of that sort. So it's not an official committee, but it's a committee within the district that has a board member appointment. And I almost feel like that's where our district is at right now as it relates to our strategic plan, and actually creating committees around it. And so my personal recommendation is that we almost keep that steering committee type setting in place as we adopt the strategic plan, create the buy-in, administration and the cabinet, creates and moves this thing. And just that way you have board input on that level, so that we don't have to do all the work and the questioning at the table. As they're, with the strategic plan in place, we're going to start having things come to the table that may require us to vote on more money to invest in the work that it's going to require, to make the strategic plan go. So having the board member input on that level, I think, will be important as it relates to the legs of the strategic plan. I'm just saying this year, as we're moving this thing forward, as it develops, I feel like then either the board will feel like, and it's not even us, it may be the cabinet superintendent may feel like, I want the board thumbprint here and here, this is where we need your support and your input outside of the table. But I just kind of want to have discussion as it relates to that, because Ms. King did make the recommendation that our committees should coincide with the pillars of the strategic plan, and I absolutely agree. I just don't think we're ready for committee work yet as it relates to the pillars. Ms. King, can I get some discussion from you regarding that?
Absolutely. First, I want some clarification. You mentioned steering committee. I want to make sure I'm understanding when you're saying steering committee, what committee you're talking about, because the steering committee, from my lens, was the committee where we had not students, but parents, community members.
I apologize.
I want to make sure I'm on the right page.
I do apologize. I misstated that. I meant to say the design committee. I think that's what they named the committee that was the cabinet and included the board member as it relates to, there was a design committee, Mr. Hankey. What was that committee?
Yeah,
called?
so when I got the superintendency, we had, there's some confusion. We had a small steering committee to hire the consultant with a board member on it. Then the board took action to hire the consultant. OE strategy suggested that the steering committee be a large group. So yeah, I believe you're talking about the design committee with a board member present on the committee. I think it's a great idea. Love to talk to Tom Evans about it. He is my mentor officially through BASA. So, you know, and as we roll out the strategic plan, and we also look at some actionable or some action steps that'll go along with it, I think that committee would be helpful.
So that particular committee will not be a part of, but would be that board member on that committee would help understand and move along the legs of the strategic plan and report that back to the board and be that liaison. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's how I see that, Mrs. Daniels. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I see it almost as if just how we've gotten up to this point, and just you really sitting, the board member will sit there with the governance lens as we're planning to move things forth with our strategic plan. You know, the board member is sitting on that committee with the district, just operating with the governance lens as they're making their plans. Oh, did we lose Ms. King?
No, I'm here.
Okay, I didn't see you on my screen. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. And as we move this strategic plan forward and maybe going into the next school year, these committees are fluid. And as we see more work, committee work may need to be done, then I think it will be necessary. But as I just kind of thought about it, I just kind of felt like we're not at the place to do individual committee work yet, I don't think.
Oh, okay. We had discussed something different in our board retreat, that we really needed to begin doing some more work behind the scenes to continue to move our district forward, not to do the work of the administrators, but to work alongside them and providing that lens. And we're looking at, ensuring that we're applying our DEI lens through everything that we do. As we're rolling out a new strategic plan, I think it would be instrumental in having the board be a part of that. Again, not managing, but being a part of discussions and helping make sure that we are all on the same page as we continue to, especially initially, roll out a new strategic plan.
Oh, no, a board member will most definitely be on this committee. Possibly two. So this is, no, I'm most definitely saying just one strategic plan committee versus a teaching and learning resource facilities, just to roll it out.
The only reason why I well, not the only reason why, one of the major reasons why I suggested individual committees for the individual legs is because we all have different expertise that we bring to the table. And that way we will be really utilizing, and we talked about this in our retreat, utilizing what we all bring to the table.
Gotcha.
So that was another reason why I suggested that. But again,
No, I
just
think it's a
my
great
suggestion from my seat.
So if we were to individualize these, will we have 5 individual committees, or what is your recommendation versus just one strategic plan committee at this time? What is your, how would you recommend us structuring it? Because I'm open to consider, it's a board decision. So that's why we're here discussing it, formalizing them together. That was just my recommendation.
Can I ask a question real quick? When you talk about the strategic plan and you talk about the committees, I look at it with a two-prong. One is a internal board committee. What is an external committee of each strategic plan area? I'll just take facilities and finance.
Mm-hmm.
Would that part of that area be where you get a group of individuals from the community to look at that strategic plan area with a board member as part of that group as a liaison committee? So that would be a committee of facilities, and then a separate outside community committee, comprised of community members and a board member for finances. And that board member would bring their expertise to that group? Or is the committee looking at, like, you form a finance committee and then you meet internally away from the strategic plan to just talk about finances and report out?
Well, I was going to
Yeah.
recommend that we have a finance committee
Right.
outside of the strategic plan committee, just because we needed that committee as a board. And I think you discussed that in your evaluation,
Well,
your desire of creating something of that sort. So,
right, but that's I guess, is that a internal with the board members? Does that include bringing outside, or is that just an internal finance committee of a couple of board members, myself and the superintendent, to discuss finances and report out to the rest of the board? Or is the finance committee an offshoot of the strategic plan where we bring in a key community members along with board members and make that a separate committee, like a finance committee that's separate with the community?
I guess that will be for
Yes,
the
I mean,
board
you
to
get structured
discuss.
either way, right?
Yep. Because I did a little research, so I do know Maple Heights, their finance committee only includes 2 board members, which is the chairperson and co-chair and the treasurer.
Right.
And the finance committee works with the treasurer and superintendent with regards to district finances. Some of the functions of the finance committees are reviews and monitors issues related to the school budget, recommends adjustments and modifications to the district's budget, and recommends cost-effective and efficient projects and initiatives for full school board consideration. So that is one that's just a snapshot of how some structure.
Right. And then the other committee that I was talking about is an outside one with community members, with a chairperson that's outside community member, with a co-chair. It's an outside community member with a board member on that committee. And then that chair reports to the board the activities of that community group. You can even have both if you'd like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just something to consideration from that aspect. Same with facilities. could be an internal committee of 2 board members, Director of Business Services and Superintendent, Assistant Superintendent, Technology, or it could be an outside group that, you know, it could be of community members with a chair, co-chair, board member, internals, and they report back what they find and recommendations to the board. So, I mean, it can go either way. That's the kind of discussion on just how the board wants to set these up.
Thanks, Al.
Mhm.
Okay. And Ms. King, I actually totally agree with you. And I guess I was just looking at it in the aspect of getting to that final place. As you indicated, that is the final goal, but just transitioning the board to be effective, and making sure that we just don't have committees on the books, but that we're just eventually moving in that direction, but just in what steps, you know, what's the method of us getting to where you indicated and what we talked about in our board retreat. Ms. Thomas, do you have any input and discussion?
No, not at this time.
Ms. Morrison?
Not at this time.
So I really, like, one thing I do not want to continue to do is keep tabling the same stuff over and over again and just not getting the work done. So we do know that we most definitely will be we will be transitioning our legislative liaison into actually a legislative committee. We have our policy committee in place. Would you guys agree on just having an independent finance committee?
When you say independent, what do you mean?
I mean, independent of the strategic plan leg.
Oh, okay. I would be okay with that. And then I'll also add a little bit of input. I do agree that our board committee should align with our strategic plan. I just don't think that every leg needs a committee. I like the idea of having a strategic plan committee person, if that makes
I
sense.
suggest something, possibly a strategic plan meeting that you have once a month to go over each of the aspects of the strategic plan once it comes out. That way you can easily tackle each thing, and that way you can invite community members in there. That way everything would be streamlined. They could report out to the public or report out to the board after each meeting from there.
I guess what kind of grew organically because of COVID and also the George Floyd murder was the equity task force I wanted to jumpstart because of that. And I thought it was important. And COVID, obviously, we hope will sunset, right? We hope. So my thought is that if you structure like a strategic plan committee, like with something like that, that might be very helpful to the Board of Education and also keep us on track. Does that make sense, Ms. Thomas? Is that what you're kind of looking at? Okay. And to Ms. King's point, we started maybe as a task force type of thing where we are not formalizing the committee structure. Does that make sense, Ms. King? Yeah. Okay.
The strategic plan task force.
Yeah, I mean, you just call it that. And then so you adopt the strategic plan, and then we can look at some actionable steps and years, and you know, we want it to be a living document, right? So it can change over time, and you have a committee that will steer it a bit. I know we're not calling it steer. not going down into the steering committee thing again, but like, just you have a committee that can report out to the board as kind of a liaison thing. And then they also that liaison and the superintendent, I think, can have discussions like this during work sessions, right? With the whole board and get input. It's a thought. I know those were kind of organic committees, like I said, that we had to have, that I believed we had to have. I think the structures have gone pretty well with them. Sometimes I think we meet too much, but sometimes I think we don't meet enough. It depends, and sometimes it's good to have a meeting where there's not much discussed, just so you have it on the books. So it's like a check-in, right? We talk to the kids about check-in. And that's probably a good thing to have. Al, what do you think about that kind of structure? You've been around a few strategic plans.
No, I think that structure is good. I do think, though, that we need, I totally agree with Ms. King about the committees and following through with each of the legs and having some aspect of we need goals and a measurement focus. And these committees provide that. And what they do is they keep us on task, which is the biggest thing we need to do is once we put this strategic plan in place, you need to stay on task and making sure that you're following through with it and that there's a measurement focus. So you know whether you're going in the right direction and you're meeting your goals. So absolutely.
And I'm thinking even in that strategic plan task force, that's where the committees can be developed and the need for which committee and structuring those committees, and those goals in that actual strategic plan task force, because you'll know that task force and know how everything ties into one another versus that individual leg, just where that some of that work can be done in. Would that be appropriate? I mean, that's just the thought.
Yeah, and I think too also that not every leg will be in effect all the time. So if you did like more of just a general strategic plan, sometimes the teaching and learning stuff will be popping and there might be a need to meet and bring people in, and sometimes maybe the DEI stuff might be popping. Like we wouldn't keep every group going every minute of every day, so like sometimes different things might be popping and require our time and attention a little bit more so than another group.
Gotcha. And I think I've heard some discussion, and maybe we've had some discussion, Mr. Hankey, as it relates to the equity task force. I think within that task force meeting of eventually making that a board committee.
Yes.
Have we talked about? So we've kind of been doing that work within, that committee, having that discussion. I think we've had that discussion before. Be it you and I think Yolanda may have had it before, just eventually making that a board committee.
Yes, I think though, I think the task force needs to have a pretty robust discussion about that, because there are things, because it is a private task force, that because there are things that we address that are private. We would want to make it more of an above, like we talked about in the board retreat, a higher level governance type of task force. And I wouldn't want to lose the momentum we have with being able to really go through our equity lens. But I could see that, not that you want to create, a splinter, but you could see where maybe the task force, by its name, right, we're completing tasks, becomes kind of another entity, more of an administrative entity. Again, to Ms. King's point about formalizing the committee, right? And so I think that discussing that in the task force over some time,
yeah,
where we can kind of bounce that off of each other, because the task force, I think, and Mrs. Daniels, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's functioning very well.
It is, it
Um,
really is.
So, and there's some robust and very crucial and honest conversation in that task force that happens. And I wouldn't want to stifle that if we you know, if we are able to kind of look at that and then look at a more of a governance equity piece. So
Gotcha.
off the top of my head, for example, equity policy, we've talked about in task force, equity policy development, right? That could be the equity, you know, committee work, something like that.
But yeah, and the policy committee's kind of gonna be working that leg too. So
Sure.
probably
Sure.
with recommendations from the equity task force.
Yep.
So just to kind of wrap everything up and just to kind of get some feedback of what I have so far, that we will for now create a strategic plan task force. Legislative committee, policy committee, finance committee. I think we should continue to keep intact our student activities liaison, and also most definitely our city liaison should remain in place. I think that's those areas continue to be very important for the district. And we have our equity task force. We'll have our legislative and policy. Well, the development of a finance committee, and the only reason why I say a finance committee, because as I looked at all our districts, all the other districts, everyone has that as a committee. And that was just one piece that I seen that our district did not have compared to other districts. And I'm referring to it as that the committee, as I just defined earlier, with the board chair, the co-chair, president, vice president, in our instance, the treasurer and the superintendent. I think that's important because I noticed that every other district had a finance committee and we were the only district that did not. And did I miss anything, or is there any other discussion? Ms. King, did you have any comments or input?
Not at this time.
And I think from the strategic plan task force, then you guys will make recommendations to the board on what committees will be necessary, board committees. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I do want to speak to seriously to Superintendent Evans over at Cuyahoga Heights, because if they've had this standing committee for a while, as I said, Mr. Evans and I have, he was my BASA mentor. So we've got a really good relationship, so I can go talk to them and see what they're up to.
Okay, great. Thank you. That'll be helpful. I guess will we put on our next agenda the appointments to like the I guess we already, I mean, but will we have to put on our agenda the appointments to like the legislative committee versus liaison and the finance committee, and I guess the strategic plan, that's a task force, so that's more administratively, so we don't have to appoint anybody to that. We could just decide what two board members will participate. I know that, Ms. King, I would like for you to most definitely participate in that strategic plan task force if you're not opposed. That way you can help with creating some direction on which committees, how to structure the committees for the board in the future.
Sure, that will be fine.
And then I think it'll be important for that one to have maybe 2 board members sit on that task force, and you guys can our next meeting.
So Mrs. Daniels, real quick. So we have a legislative committee, a finance committee, and we call that strategic plan task force committee. So are those the 3 we're talking about?
We're not making the strategic plan task force a formal committee.
Okay.
It's going to be structured like our COVID task force
Got it.
and our equity task force right now.
But you want to, at the board meeting, appoint 2 people to that task force, 2 people to the legislative committee, and 2 people to the finance committee.
Yes.
Okay.
And we already have our appointments to the policy committee. So we don't
Yes.
need to change
Right.
that.
Okay. Can do that.
Do you have any further comments, Ms. Thomas? Any further comments, Ms. Morrison? Ms. King, do you have any further comments?
No.
Okay, thank you guys for helping us get through that. We also, our next item on the agenda is the board norms. And I just wanted to know, Ms. Morrison, did I send that to you? I gotta find that, the board norms. I don't know. Ms. Morrison, did I send you a document, share a document with you that said board norms? No, I didn't. I'm gonna send it to you. Ms. Thomas and Ms. King, did you guys have an opportunity to look it over and make any change or comments that you had as it relates to the norms that was in place?
Yes, I did.
I did see some suggestions from Miss King. I did have a few suggestions, but I did not add them to the Google Doc. I can do that now though, if it's easier for you.
Yeah. Was there any thing that really stood out at all?
Do we plan on, what do we want to do about the item on page 2 regarding the board president being the voice of the Board of Education?
I had commented, I wanted some clarification. I was a little confused on not that the president isn't the voice of the Board of Education. It just, some of the, I guess, bullets underneath didn't flow right for me. So I was.
Yeah, we can change them.
And I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, I think that may have derived from really just making sure that, I think that's more or less making sure that the board president communicates information that they receive down the line. It says the board will establish a protocol that would allow the board president to be the voice of the Board of Education. The bullet says we will communicate with all board members. We will respect the opinions of each board member, and we will disseminate information to board members in a timely manner that would allow for discourse and open discussion. So what would you guys like to recommend as the changes?
I'm trying to get back to it.
Do you want?
That's Equity Task Force.
You want me to resend it to you?
Oh, I'm in it. I can send it again real quick.
I have.
I just sent it to you again.
And this is literally just the framework that Miss Deborah Wright Key. So anything we don't feel is necessary as our board norms, we don't have to include it on here. This was just a framework for consideration. So even if we feel like some norms may not necessarily need to be stated with this board. So just were you able to pull it up, Ms. King?
Yes, yes.
I can't even figure
The
out.
board will establish a,
And I think we
and
already
maybe it's, and it seemed like it was already, what you were just saying is already within other parts of it. I think it's more of a communication that we're funneling things up through you and we receive things down from you. That's the purpose of that norm. Am I correct?
Yeah, and I guess just so the board president knows that when I receive information as the president, it's not just for my information. It's the purposes for me to ensure that it's communicated to all the board members. That just assist in particular Mr. Hankey from necessarily having to reach out to everyone, you know, and just have some discussion on behalf. And that just kind of streamlines some things.
And I think the other thing that could be added under there could be that we had decided, and we've been doing this as a norm, is that when we do get information, when we do get emails from teachers, community members, that you're the person that the board president is the person that addresses those and forwards them on to Mr. Hankey. You know, in your absence, if I know you're on vacation or, you know, then I would respond.
Yeah, I like that addition. I also think that as we consider this board norm, that we think through the lens of any board president, not just Mrs. Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, this is a norm, period, no matter for the board president, not Ms. Daniels. So how do we work? We will have I guess the board president is responsible. Is there anything else?
I had also indicated, because it says under the 2 bullets down, the board will establish protocol to visit schools. And the 3rd bullet, we will decide as a board what schools each of us should visit and the frequency. And my question was,
We don't need that.
why are we deciding that? I think that letting, you know, Mr. Hankey know, hey, Mr. Hankey, next Monday, I want to stop by the high school, you know, to say hi and just to, I mean, not check in, but just to show my face. and that I would let Mr. Hankey know, and he would let Ms. Hager know, and then I would touch base with Ms. Hager or one of the assistant principals once I arrived on campus. But I didn't know what
Have you ever, and I don't think, have you ever done, I mean, we've been doing COVID, so
Yeah, I haven't been able to visit
I
anybody.
know. So usually kind of, I know my experience is just kind of letting Mr. Hankey know, and then he makes the arrangements for you from there, you know, and the staff, you know, hey, I want to stop by here and visit. And then he makes those arrangements for us, and it's nothing else we have to do but, you know, show up. He he handles that on our behalf.
It's
Yeah, and
actually in board policy.
Yes, it is.
yes.
Mhm.
And so I didn't know why we would be deciding like, okay, this month so-and-so's going to this school and you only can stay X amount of time. Another thing that I added on the bottom that is kind of semi-related to this is that I think we might need a board norm around our school board members that are also parents, so that it's clear when you're coming in the building that you're coming in as a parent. I'm here just because I need to talk to my student's teacher about XYZ, as opposed to coming in and staff and or administration feeling this parent may be coming in more as a board member. Does that make sense?
Yeah, could it be something as simple as, are we wearing our lanyards around our necks? Or, you know, when we go into a building, you know,
As a board member.
Make sure that our lanyards are visible. So could we, under the norm for the protocol for visiting schools, could we just make it a norm that if we, you know, are in the district handling board member duties, that our lanyards are visibly shown? And are we going to just eliminate the school visit frequency bullet point?
Yeah, I think I
I
did.
did that.
Okay.
I'm never gonna be let in. I always forget my lanyard. No, but I think that's a good point. I'm trying to do this on a tablet. I can't.
Oh no. Do you want me to do it? I'm on my computer.
Girl.
See where you are.
All the way at the bottom.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, no. Can you stop? I am just going to put this bullet point under the protocol for school visits.
Gotcha. And some of these things are in policy and already some of the stuff we do is just, I guess, just having some things just in place to just keep us, remind us and keep us on task, and keep us focused on what our expectations are for board members. Any other comments on the board norms?
I think you've addressed the comments that I had.
Okay, well, I'm going to, once Ashley makes those changes that's necessary, I'm going to finalize it and just send over the final document to all you guys. And also, just going to send it over to Mr. Juby just to see if he has any input. And once I get an okay from him, whether he has any input or want to add anything, then we can move forward with establishing these as our board norms. Is that okay with you guys?
Do we want to, on page 1, do we have this item, we will submit agenda item request with documentations to the board president no later than date and time prior to scheduled board meetings? Do we want to put a date and time here?
I think we need a time and date. I mean, by the end of we got Thursday. Oh,
That's if we have
we will submit agenda items request.
Mhm.
It all depends on prior to the scheduled board meeting. That probably will need to be I would say like that Monday, because we'll be meeting with Mr. Hankey. That way that gives his team enough time to add it to the agenda prior to our tentative agenda meeting.
So that's
But that's if the
2
board want
weeks.
to add something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yours is no later. Yeah, so that's if a board member want to add something to the agenda, right?
I would, my 2 cents, I would kind of make that a little flexible in case something comes up. You know, if there's an issue, that might need to be addressed, or something that's forgotten, right? So, but you could put like as a guideline, like a norm, but a guideline. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, just putting that in there, considering I'm always chasing people down for agenda items. So.
The board receive agenda packets in a timely manner in order to prepare for the meetings. We will receive agendas and documentations no later than the Thursday prior to the meeting. We will submit agenda item requests with documentation to the board president no later than time and day prior to the scheduled board meeting.
So it almost has to be 3 weeks in advance, because it has to be before the agenda planning committee, which is before the work session, which is before the board meeting.
So I guess we will receive agendas and documentation no later than the Thursday prior to the work session, which that's when we receive it now.
The tentative.
Yeah.
So do we want to change prior to meeting to prior to work session?
Yes. And then, okay, yeah, but I want to add something else there. Another bullet. And the next bullet will be, we will receive the final agenda no later than the Thursday before the regular board meeting.
Okay.
And Mr. Hankey and Al, if a board member wanted to submit something that's non-emergency to be put on the agenda, according to the guidelines that you guys try to go by, what will be an appropriate time for us to submit those items to you guys to get that on that agenda?
I would say Thursday morning before the tentative.
Okay.
That's where we put all the other items. That way you have it, the board has a chance to consider it at the workshop. the remaining board and then discuss and move from there.
You'll put Ashley, that bullet number 2,
Mhm.
Thursday prior to the scheduled work session.
Okay.
Okay. Woo.
Ooh, this is not. Okay. Are we getting rid of this October 30th to 31st for retreat line?
Yep. Yep.
'Cause, you know, I need this stuff to be lined up properly. Okay.
All right. Well, those are our board norms, you guys. It took us all of November, December, January, February, but it's done.
Here we are.
That is off the plate. Thank you guys for your input. Is there any more input? Ms. King, do you have any more input as it relates to the board norms?
No,
And just remember, you guys, this is a very fluid document. So as we need to make changes or add things or remove things, it's open. Just know that I'm gonna be sure to share it with Mr. Juby, just to be sure that he agrees or doesn't have any comment. Ms. Morrison, do you have any further comment on our board norms?
Not at this time.
Thank you. And Ms. Thomas?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. That is done. One thing I would like, do I have to request a motion to add something to the agenda because the item, I need to amend our agenda because it was omitted discussion as it relates to the February 16th board meeting agenda. I have requested this be put on the agenda, but it's not on here. So do I need to take a motion to amend the agenda to include
Yeah,
item
you don't-
4.7?
To tell you the truth, when I put on there any other matters that come before the board, I think you could just put that discussion in place,
Okay.
Mrs. Daniels,
Thank you. So
as
if there-
far as,
okay, thank you.
because that's really what the work session is. There's, the agenda is to hold the work session to discuss the various items. So you don't really need to take a motion to add this. You're just as part of the discussion of the work session.
Okay, so the last item for discussion today will be the February 16th tentative board agenda. Do anyone have any questions of the cabinet as it relates to any items that is on the agenda? Now is the time to ask those questions.
no, Madam President.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas? Ms. Morrison? Okay, thank you, guys. You guys find that you have any questions prior to the board meeting, just feel free to reach out to Mr. Hank. Righty, you guys, we are getting through this meeting. I would like to, hold on, let me get to my, just, it's over. Okay, our next item on the agenda is executive session. I would like, do I need to take a motion to go into executive session, Al?
Yes, you do.
Yes, I would like a motion to enter into executive session for actually at 8:40 p.m. for the purpose of discussing GHTA negotiation and personal issues. Can I have a motion on the floor, please?
So moved.
Second. That motion was moved by Ms. King and second by Ms. Thomas. Can I have roll call, please?
Ms. King,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes.
All right, Sherry's you're gonna put us in a breakout room, Mrs. Bailey? Thank you.
Thank you guys for the long night. We getting to work. Got everybody? Alrighty. Right, everybody out? Okay. If it could be noted that we adjourned executive session on February 8th at 8:56 p.m. And no action will be taken. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
And a second?
Second.
That was moved by Ms. Thomas and second by Ms. King. Can I have roll call, please?
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. King,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. Thank you, guys. That adjourns our